Hey guys, welcome back in. Before we get started with discussing Matthew 27 and 28 and reading the last two chapters of Matthew, I did want to give you a little bit of a warning. These last two chapters are going to be kind of graphic. The first little bit of 27 is going to be pretty graphic. If you are reading along or watching along with your children, just be aware, be forewarned. I don't want anybody to get overwhelmed or I don't want it to be too much for anybody. So if you've got to take a break, hit the pause button, take a break. It is okay. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up. Matthew's much more detailed in what goes on in the last few moments of Jesus' life. So just be aware, be forewarned. See you in a minute. Here we go. Matthew 27 and 28, the last two chapters of Matthew. Like I said in my last video, we all know what's coming. We all know where it's going. So let's go ahead and dive in. When it was morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people, the Sanhedrin, conferred together against Jesus, plotting how to put him to death, since under Roman rule they had no power to execute anyone. So they bound him and led him away and handed him over to Pilate, the governor of Judea, who had the authority to condemn prisoners to death. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was gripped with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." They replied, "What is that to us? See to that yourself." And throwing the pieces of silver into the temple sanctuary, he left and went away and hanged himself. The chief priests, picking up the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put these in the treasury of the temple, because it is the price of blood." So after consultation, they used the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. Therefore, that piece of ground has been called the field of blood to this day. Then the words spoken by Jeremiah the prophet were fulfilled. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him on whom a price had been set by the sons of Israel, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me. Now Jesus stood before Pilate, the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" In affirmation, Jesus said to him, "It is as you say." But when the charges were brought against him by the chief priests and the elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they are testifying against you?" But Jesus did not reply to him, not even to a single accusation, so that the governor was greatly astonished. Now at the feast of the Passover, the governor was in the habit of setting free any one prisoner whom the people chose. And at that time, they were holding a notorious prisoner, guilty of insurrection and murder, called Barabbas. So when they had assembled for this purpose, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to set free for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For Pilate knew that it was because of jealousy that the chief priests and the elders had handed Jesus over to him. While he was seated on the judgment seat, his wife sent him a message, saying, "Have nothing to do with that righteous and innocent man, for last night I suffered greatly in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to put Jesus to death. The governor said to them, "Which of the two do you wish me to set free for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus who is called Christ?" They all replied, "Let him be crucified." And he said, "Why? What has he done that is evil?" But they continued shouting all the louder, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but rather that a riot was breaking out, he took water and washed his hands to ceremonially cleanse himself of the guilt in the presence of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this righteous man's blood. See to that yourselves." And all the people answered, Let the responsibility for his blood be on us and on our children." So he set Barabbas free for them. But after having Jesus severely whipped or scourged, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus to the praetorium, and they gathered the whole Roman cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him as a king's robe. And after twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand as a scepter. Kneeling before him, they ridiculed him, saying, "Hail, rejoice, King of the Jews." They spat on him and took the reed and struck him repeatedly on the head. After they finished ridiculing him, they stripped him of the scarlet robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. Now, as they were coming out, they found a man of Cyrene named Simon, who they forced into service to carry the cross of Jesus. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they offered him wine mixed with gall, or myrrh, a bitter-tasting narcotic, to drink. But after tasting it, he refused to drink it. And when they crucified him, they divided his clothes among them by casting lots. Then, sitting down there, they began to keep watch over him, to guard him against any rescue attempt. And above his head, they put the accusation against him, which read, "This is Jesus, King of the Jews." At the same time, 2 robbers were crucified with Jesus, one on the right and one on the left. Those who passed by were hurling abuse at him and jeering at him, wagging their heads in scorn and ridicule. And they said tauntingly, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself from death. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and the elders, mocked him, saying, "He saved others from death. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him and acknowledge him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now, if he delights in him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" The robbers who had been crucified with him also began to insult him. The robbers who had been crucified with him also began to insult him in this way. Now from the 6th hour, about noon, there was a darkness over all the land until the 9th hour, 3 p.m. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud, agonized voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they began saying, "This man is calling for Elijah." Immediately, one of them ran and took a sponge and soaked it with sour wine and put it on a reed and gave him a drink. But the rest said, "Let us see whether Elijah will come to save him from death." And Jesus cried out again with a loud, agonized voice and gave up his spirit voluntarily, sovereignly dismissing and releasing his spirit from his body in submission to his Father's plan. And at once, the veil of the Holy of Holies of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, and the rocks were split apart. The tombs were opened, and many bodies of the saints, or God's people, who had fallen asleep in death, were raised to life. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city of Jerusalem and appeared to many people. Now the centurion and those who were with him keeping guard over Jesus, when they saw the earthquake and the things that were happening, they were terribly frightened and filled with awe and said, "Truly this was the Son of God." There were also many women looking on from a distance who had accompanied Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him. Among them was Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and Salome the mother of Zebedee's sons, James and John. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked him for the body of Jesus so that he might bury him, and Pilate ordered that it be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth or burial wrapping, and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a large stone over the entrance of the tomb and went away. And Mary Magdalene was there, and the other Mary, sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is, the day after the day of preparation for the Sabbath, the chief priests and the Pharisees assembled before Pilate, and said, "Sir, we have remembered that when he was still alive, that deceiver said, 'After 3 days I will rise from the dead.' Therefore, give orders to have the tomb made secure and safeguarded until the 3rd day. Otherwise his disciples may come and steal him away and tell the people he has risen from the dead. And the last deception, the reporting of his resurrection, will be worse than the first, the reporting that he is the Messiah." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go with them. Make the tomb as secure as you know how." So they went and made the tomb secure, and along with stationing a guard of soldiers to be on watch, they set a seal on the stone. Now we're moving on to Matthew chapter 28. Now after the Sabbath, near dawn of the 1st day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. And a great earthquake had occurred, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled away the stone from the opening of the tomb and sat on it. The angel's appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were as white as snow. The guards shook, paralyzed with fear at the sight of him, and became like dead men, pale and immobile. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who has been crucified. He is not here, for he has risen, just as he said he would. Come, see the place where he was lying. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is going ahead of you into Galilee as he promised. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you." So the women left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy, and ran to tell the good news to the disciples. And as they went, suddenly Jesus met them, saying, "Rejoice!" And they went to him and took hold of his feet in homage and worshipped him as the Messiah. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and there they will see me, just as I promised." While they were on their way, some of the Roman guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. And when the chief priests had gathered with the elders and had consulted together to develop a plan of deception, they gave a sufficient sum of money as a bribe to the soldiers, and said, "You say this, 'His disciples came at night and stole him while we were sleeping.' And if the governor, Pilate, hears about it, we will calm him down and keep you out of trouble." So they took the money they were paid for lying and did as they were instructed. And this fabricated story was widely spread among the Jews and is to this present day. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain which Jesus had designated. And when they saw him, they worshipped him. But some doubted that it was really he. Jesus came up and said to them, "All authority, all power of absolute rule in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations. Help the people to learn of me, believe in me, and obey my words, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, remaining with you perpetually, regardless of circumstance, and on every occasion, even to the end of the age." And that was the Gospel of Matthew. Those last couple of chapters were very intense. A lot happened. A lot was described that was otherwise not described in John and in Luke. And Isn't it so incredible? Isn't it so incredible? You know, a lot of people these days say, oh, to have been alive in the time of Jesus. You are alive in the time of Jesus. He's not here physically with us, but he never left us. It says that in the last verse. I am with you always, till the end of the age. But I have to agree, to have walked this earth while he was walking this earth had to have been something so special. The disciples and the apostles, there's nothing I could even put to words to describe what they must have felt. Those days of he's dead, he's gone. And I know he warned them. He told them. It's not like it should have been a surprise. But I think even when we know it's coming, it's not easy. I just had to put one of my cats to sleep a couple of weeks ago, the day after, late into the night, early into the morning on the 15th of February. And it was difficult. It was not easy, but I knew it was coming. If you've ever had pets, especially cats, you know that they will show you when it's time. They will tell you when it's their time. And something that I heard at the vet a few weeks before I had taken her for a checkup, because we were talking about how just absolutely old she was. She was 17 years old. They said, better to be a week early or a day early than to be a day or a week or a month, whatever, late in regards to not letting them suffer. And I think, like I said, it's not easy even when you know it's coming. So I think with the disciples, and again, this is not their pet, this is their teacher, their best friend, the man who was promised to them ages and ages before to come and save the people of Israel. Not in the way that they were thinking, but to save them nonetheless. They watched him be brutally beaten, mocked, humiliated, and murdered within the course of just a few hours. From him going to Caiaphas to him dying, I think is only 12 hours. I'll have to look at a timeline that I have in my Rose Bible charts and maps and all that. But to go from having dinner and praying with him to watching him beaten and murdered in just a couple of days, like that had to have been so intense for them. I've seen discussion recently in a network that I'm part of, the Novos Network. Somebody said, can you imagine the time between Jesus dying and Jesus coming back? What the apostles and his disciples went through. Just the coping with their feelings, coping with their grief. Even the ones that understood that it had to happen that way. Even the ones that knew he said this was going to happen. It did happen. And he said he's going to rise again. But it took 3 days. I can't imagine the grief that they went through. Because the grief that I went through with my cat, which I'm still kind of processing it, honestly, I mostly feel at peace because I immediately went to God when I knew what I had to do. And I had been really worried about her the last few weeks that she was alive. Like to the point of anxiety attacks. And I know that's not fruit of the Spirit. So I just went to God and I was like, I know what has to be done and I need you to make me okay. And boy, did he. Like, I'm tearing up now, not because I'm sad, but because the overwhelming peace that you get with the presence of God is so powerful. It will make you weep. It will make you ugly cry. When it says God draws near to the brokenhearted, he does. And it's because you are broken, you are open, your guard is gone, you are raw. And that is the perfect time for him to actually be able to embrace you. So I hope that that is what the disciples had the opportunity to feel. That undeniable, undescribable depth of peace and mercy and just the presence of God. Because when Jesus died, the veil was torn that covered the Holy of Holies. And that's something that we'll get into when we get further into our readings and we read more about the Old Testament and how the temple was set up. But that space was only for the high priest. It was only used when you were purified, cleansed, ready to be in the presence of God. Because if you didn't go through the steps, you didn't follow the rules, being in the presence of God would kill you. And God gave his only Son so that we could be in the presence of him without dying. That's precisely what John 3:16 tells us. God gave his only Son so that we would not perish but have everlasting life. Like, if you break it down and look at it like that, being in the presence of God when you were not cleansed, when you were sinful, when you were not repentant, was murder. The end. It's just how it worked. That was the rules of the world. And he couldn't stand it. He wanted to be with us. Again, he wanted that connection that he designed us for. So he gave the ultimate sacrifice. Because God's a triune being. Father, Son, Holy Spirit all exist together. Again, like I described it previously, and I've seen it described, it's like Neapolitan ice cream. It cannot be Neapolitan ice cream without the 3 different flavors. But they are all ice cream. You know, or my hand, my arm, is not its own separate entity. It's not its own separate thing. Same with my legs, you know, my ears, whatever. It's all a part of me, but they function in a specific way. And that is precisely the way that it is with God, the Father, the Son, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, our comforter, our intercessor, our direct line to him. So there are parts, and you can speak to all 3 parts. God draws near when you're brokenhearted. I feel like that's when you feel the Father the strongest. You know, you talk to Holy Spirit, or I talk to Holy Spirit daily. I try to. I ask him to give me instruction, to give me guidance, to give me will, you know, his will. And Jesus is just a profound experience in and of itself. Talking with him and being in his presence, you can't help but weep. It's so pure and so astonishing. And that's something I want to ask you guys in this video. Ask Jesus to show himself to you. Ask him, what do you want me to know? What do you want me to know about myself? What do you want me to know about a situation you might be in? Or just, what do you want me to know? What do you want to tell me today? What do you want to talk about today? And, you know, the exercise that I got to do with Donna Winship, she described it very simply, very easily. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, try to let your mind clear as best as you possibly can, and then imagine a safe space, your favorite place to be. Whether it's from your childhood, whether it's from your present day, whether it's a place that you're building. Imagine yourself in this safe space, and then invite Jesus to come be with you and talk to him. Trust me, your life will change. Not just your day, your life will change. No doubt about it. And if you have trouble with that, pray on it. Read Jamie Winship's book, Living Fearlessly. The same exercise is described in that book. You can check out Identity Exchange, which is their company that they do to help people break away from the lies that they have accepted about themselves and about the world, and to accept the truth back into their lives. There are tons of resources available, but it's such a beautiful exercise and it's such a beautiful thing. And, I'm 32 years old and never really had a moment of sitting down and talking with Jesus until 2 weeks ago. I never really had that moment. I've heard from Holy Spirit. I've seen God move. I've felt the presence of God, especially in my brokenhearted moments. But I never really just sat down and had a conversation with Jesus. And it changed my life. It really did. So that's my request of you guys as we move into our next book of the Bible, which we're going to be reading the Gospel of Mark together. And it's the shortest gospel. I think it's 16 chapters. Yeah, 16 chapters. So, and I'm going to do 2 chapters at a time, like I did with Matthew. So it'll be quick. But between now and then, sit down and just try to have a conversation with Jesus. Ask him what he wants you to know. Ask him, can he confirm something that you've been working on thinking about doing, or can he show you the right way to accomplish that, or the direction he wants you to go? And again, if you want to make it simple, just ask him, hey, what do you want me to know today? What are we talking about today? What's the topic of conversation? Because I'm here. No matter what you want to tell me, no matter what you want to say, I'm here. I'm listening. It'll change your life. In the meantime, stay blessed, stay bold, and I will see you in the next one.